Before the first shot fired in World War I, the world was at a precipice, teetering on the edge of a catastrophic conflict. An intricate tapestry of alliances had been woven among the world's major powers, each thread pulling nations closer towards a looming war. In the shadows, a silent arms race was taking place, fueling underlying tensions and rivalries. Every new weapon, every fortified army, was a spark waiting to ignite the powder keg that was early 20th century Europe. Amidst this volatile atmosphere, a tragic incident in Sarajevo would serve as the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was a shockwave that resonated around the globe. This event, steeped in political intrigue and nationalistic fervor, would prove to be the catalyst that set the wheels of war in motion. And so, with a single bullet, the match was struck, and the world was about to be set ablaze. The year 1914 marked the beginning of what was to become one of the most devastating wars in human history. A complex web of alliances, national interests, and old grudges had led the world to a precipice. And now, the world was about to plunge into the abyss of the Great War. In the early stages, the war was characterized by movement, with armies maneuvering for advantage. But soon, this gave way to a grim reality of trench warfare on the Western Front. Miles and miles of trenches were dug, creating a vast network of mud, misery, and despair. Soldiers lived in these trenches under constant threat of artillery fire, gas attacks, and disease. Two battles encapsulate the horror of this war: the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Verdun. At the Somme, in 1916, the British and the French hoped to break the German lines with a massive offensive. What followed was one of the bloodiest battles in history, with over 1 million casualties on all sides. Verdun, in the same year, saw the French and the Germans locked in a brutal struggle for control of a strategic fortress. The result was another bloodbath, with hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the war took on a different character. Here, the vast distances and harsh winters added another layer of difficulty to the conflict. The Russians, Austrians, and Germans fought bitterly in this theater, with shifting fronts and fluid situations. And let's not forget, this was a truly global conflict involving countries far beyond Europe. From the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of Africa, from the high seas to the skies, the war raged on, drawing in nations and peoples from every corner of the globe. The world was in the grip of a war unlike any seen before, a war that seemed to have no end in sight. By 1918, the war had taken a heavy toll on all sides, but finally, the end was near. The entry of the United States marked a turning point. Their fresh troops and abundant resources tipped the scales in favor of the Allies. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front was in turmoil. The Russian Revolution had erupted, pulling Russia out of the war and causing a shift in the balance of power. In the wake of these pivotal events, negotiations commenced. The result was the Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919. This treaty held Germany responsible for the war, demanding harsh reparations and territorial losses. The treaty was met with resentment, particularly in Germany, sowing seeds of discord that would later sprout into another devastating conflict. The war to end all wars had finally come to a close, but its effects would be felt for generations to come. The world had changed irreversibly, and the stage was set for the rest of the 20th century. World War I reshaped the world in ways that are still evident today. It was a time of unimaginable carnage, with millions of lives lost and countless more changed forever. The political landscape was forever altered as new powers emerged and old ones crumbled. The war led to profound changes in global alliances, setting the stage for the even more devastating World War II. However, from this dark period in our history, there are lessons to be learned. It taught us about the dangers of unchecked nationalism and militarism, about the fragility of peace, and the devastating consequences of a world divided. It showed us the importance of diplomacy, of communication, and the necessity of collective security. As we look back on World War I, we are reminded of the devastation that can arise from unchecked nationalism, militarism, and a complex web of alliances. It serves as a stark reminder of the costs of war and the importance of diplomatic solutions.